big amounts. They quoted what was spent in what was budgeted for 2016 and 2017, but they say they are looking at a time when Nigeria would actually implement all that it has actually proposed over time. So let's still talk about implementation of this budget. Many speakers now are both in Ibadan and of course and Abuja have hammered on that. Do you really think we will do or will be judicious in implementation of this 2018 budget? Joshua.
Well, the president himself confirmed that, okay, some of the projects that were supposed to have been done in 2017 are still in the process. So they are being rolled over along with the, and I think it was Iko Njoiwela who was going to actually set up an implementation office in the Ministry of Finance then. I don't know what happened to that suggestion then. But I believe very sincerely, because there's always been this problem of people not believing in what the government is saying. Fortunately enough for us, we have a government that, well, some of us believe has integrity. And that's why the things they've done so far points to the fact that there's continuity. Okay, we're talking of this, all along we've been talking of diversifying our revenue base. Just, it was always been talk. Fortunately enough, this government is now doing something about that. We have the agri sector being properly brought into the system, the solid minerals brought into the system too. So I believe, and the government itself has admitted that, okay, like we said before, that 2017 effectively is only 6 months.
Yes.
So there's no way you can now expect that they will have rolled everything and, you know, railroaded everything and got everything sorted out. But because they themselves realized that a lot of the 2017 budget is still outstanding, they've now built it into the 2018. So I want to believe that we can expect that there will be implementation.
Joshua, do you agree?
Okay, I can't hold forth or hold brief for the guys who are actually managing the project, but I'm going to look at the antecedents. And what's the antecedents? Every one of those key projects that were earmarked for execution so far are being chased. Remember the Nnamdi Azikiwe Stadium that was almost half done, not even half done, maybe a quarter done by previous administration, was the focus of this administration. They finished it. Okay? And the government say we will not have any abandoned project again. So far, Second Niger Bridge was focused on and is being chased. In the 2018 budget, we know that they earmarked a huge sum of money for that. If you check in the budget, the Enugu-Onitsha and Port Harcourt Road was clearly one of the key roads to be dealt with in 2018. You know, what we need to do again, and that's why I like what some organizations like Sarah, Budget, and a few are doing. You know, they chase those projects to see where are we at. They didn't abandon the Lagos-Ibadan road, which is part of what they are doing. If you also look at what has happened with the Mambila, project, it's also going on. And I think if you have those level of antecedents and such level of commitment, the Red Project, don't forget the Red Project, was also chased. And now it's been said that this also is going to be driven. In December, they are supposed to commission the rail. I think there is Abuja, Kaduna, or so. Kaduna, Abuja Road rail is supposed to be commissioned another couple of days now. So if these have been on, antecedents is what I'm going to rely on. And then I'm going to want to say, look, let us as a whole, both the gatekeepers and Serap and who, focus and let's keep ironing, pointing out these areas where things have been done. And if you want to also follow the budget, let's give credit to Odo Odoma. I don't know him, so I don't belong to their political party. But go and check the website. You keep seeing what they have done, so that we can actually have critical analysis. And then it will help us as a people to be able to also hold our government accountable. But one thing we have also failed to do is that we are not holding the governors accountable We're not holding the National Assembly accountable. That is where we should actually have clear focus. They are supposed to be the checks and balances that we depend upon, you know, to say, okay, in National Assembly, are you benchmarking what this government is doing? That will help us as a people, and not where they have, you know, necessary collaboration to hide things. But I think we need to, you know, call the shots in that area, raise the red flag where these things are not being done. But so far, I think I have belief in this government, and I want to believe that they can take it through.
Okay, looking at it from the educational sector now, I see what was allocated to education, and looking at antecedent again, looking at it, that are we sure, because I'm particular about education. I served several years ago, and I was made to go to the classroom during my service here, and I saw some of my core members who I felt were not thick enough for the classroom, and now we're crying that we want a better education. Now, looking at the budget allocated to education, do you think that is quite a good number for education?
Okay, personally, I would say no. We are still very far behind in terms of investment in education, very far behind. In fact, it's pitiful, it's shameful that a country as Nigeria should have, even though it is the highest percentage so far given to education, I still think it is woeful that 7% of the total budget is earmarked for education. Perhaps that's why we have many of us not able, being able to think right. We are not able to be critical thinkers, when it comes to looking at, issues. But 180 billion, if I combine the Universal Basic Education Commission funds as well as education together, that's 180. Education alone is about something, under 70 billion. But I'm going to look at the combination of the two and say, okay, is this what they want to use to drive education from the grassroots up? It is not sufficient. But that is where we find ourselves at the moment, because the focus is more around capital projects, which involves, the roads, the power, housing, all the other infrastructures. And you need that level of investment. That's where I may also come back a bit and say, maybe that is to the benefit of the nation as a whole. Because when you invest in infrastructure, in those capital infrastructures, the idea is to deal with employment. Because those are supposed to generate employment. And you look at how much is being devoted to agric, how much is being devoted to, you mentioned water resources earlier. These are supposed to be the engine drivers for employment opportunities. When you then have that rising, I want to believe and I want to hope that the government will be intelligent enough to then say, okay, we are now growing in this area, let us pump more into education. Defense is also key, because that's very important. We can't toy with it. I'm not even talking of interior affairs, which I would even put a little bit lower than, and take from there and put into education. But so far, I think objectively, we can say that there's a focus. Education, like I said, is woeful.
All right, so Galaxy, today, just to let you know that you can be a part of this conversation. If you have a question, if you want to just comment on the 2018 national budget, feel free to do that and by SMS, and the numbers now scrolling on your screen, or you can interact with us via our various social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, and of course Instagram. We'll take a quick break. We'll come wrap up the session. Stay with us. President Muhammadu Buhari has presented a 2018 budget of 8.612 trillion naira, the country's biggest ever, to the National Assembly. Addressing a joint session of the Senate and House of Representatives in Abuja Tuesday, the president said the budget was based on an exchange rate of 305 naira to the dollar and a projected oil output of 2.3 million barrels per day at an assumed price of $45 per barrel. President Buhari arrived at the Green Chamber around 5 minutes after 2 on Tuesday to read to the listening audience the budget of consolidation. After exchanging pleasantries, the president assured lawmakers that the 2018 budget would be a consolidation of the earlier ones, as it is expected to be a year of better outcomes. The president said he was targeting January 1, 2018 for the passage of the bill. Reading out the specifics of the document, he said the deficit is expected to be 2.005 trillion naira, while the real economic growth is estimated at 3.5% for 2018.
For the 2018 budget, as set out in the 2018 to 2020 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. These include benchmark oil price of United States $45 per barrel, oil production estimate of 2.3 million barrels per day, including condensate, C, exchange rate of 305 naira to United States dollar for 2018.
President Buhari further disclosed that the proposed 8.612 trillion naira of 2018 aggregate expenditure comprises 3.5 trillion naira recurrent cost, 2 trillion naira for debt service, 456 billion naira for statutory transfers, as well as 2.428 trillion naira for capital expenditure. This, he said, would stimulate the economy and take it further from recession.
To the following key projects and programs that are determined to implement in 2018. A, 9.8 billion naira for Mambila hydropower project, including 8.5 billion as counter funding.
In their separate addresses, leaders of the National Assembly hammered on the need for cordial relationship between the executive and the legislature for full implementation of the budget and for the good of the citizenry.
And drive the regeneration of our rural areas. Agriculture, for instance, is meaningless without those that will engage in the farming in the countryside. The current rate of rural to urban migration is alarming and unsustainable.
The prospect of totally abandoning the 2017 budget and the dire consequences of doing so. Questions that must be answered include whether we have effectively enforced 2017 fiscal targets and whether managers have complied with the budget as authorized.
All right, you just heard the President again, and of course the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the Senate President talking on the 2018 budget. Uche, you have the next question.
Oh yes, I'm still talking about implementation. I'd like us to look at water resources that was allocated 95.11 billion naira. And just before we came on, I was like, I grew up knowing Public Tap and of course Water Corporation, and today it almost feels like it's phased out. Okay, looking at what the federal government or what the budget is trying to deal with, do you think this allocation is enough to deal with, I mean, the whole hula baloo about water resources? I'm thinking, is there still hope to go back to what we used to know as public water, instead of doing our personal government of running boreholes and the rest?
I think the government was also talking about irrigation and all that. Okay. And it's really, for some of us, it's really heart-rending. When you remember what you grew up knowing. If I'm in Lagos now, I'm not sure there's any public tap running any longer, and not for quite a while now. And that also leads to diseases. Because when you take unwholesome water, you end up, So these are things that, well, definitely the allocations definitely won't be able to address a lot of the things we are talking about now. But then the state governments too have a role to play in this. So it's not as if, I believe that some of the, in fact, this year of people who are talking of restructuring and all that, what we need more than any other thing is the devolution of power. Let the federal government handle things that actually are at the national level. Leave some of these things, like this issue of primary education, even water. Let the state governments handle that. Then the government, the federal government, maybe for all these what do you call development authorities to help the agri sector and all that. But some of these things should be left to the states. So there's no way the federal government can vote enough funds for water resources, given the rot that is in the system already. So that's where we find ourselves.
Okay, before we leave this topic, I just want us, because we've hammered so much on the projected oil revenue and of course the exchange rate, let's talk about the receipts from non-oil sector right now, because a whole lot of people just talk so much on oil. You know, from what we hear, what we see here, the federal government's estimated total revenue is about 6.607 trillion in 2018, which is about 30% higher than that of 2017, and projecting oil for 2.422 and non-oil as well as other revenues as 4.165 trillion. Do you see yourself getting this projection?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, this government is doing a lot about, you know, we've all been talking about diversifying our revenue base. That has all been talk, but this government has been doing quite a bit to really, the agri sector is being, a lot of money is being pumped to the agri sector. Then the solid mineral sector is also, and then I think the government is also trying to expand its tax base.
So how are we doing in tax administration in Nigeria?
And that's what the government is now trying to really ensure, that more people are caught in the tax net. They've given people some time within which to really voluntarily declare their other sins. But then that means there are going to be more people captured into the taxable belt. And so that will bring in much more revenue than help. And in any case, every other person is thinking of something else, because very soon maybe we'll be drinking our people are already thinking of
other areas. Okay, Joshua, last words on that.
Okay, I want to believe that so far we have a very well-structured economy so far, and I will say that with every sense of respect. TSA has helped to capture loopholes in leakages of funds. So how the service industries, how the government agencies, you know, siphon money away previously is now heavily reduced. And the recent one, which is, I think, the bit about the BVN, those who have not done their BVN, because we know there are certain monies are still being trapped in some accounts, which will eventually, you know, we know there are a lot of stolen funds we are waiting for. Nobody is talking about the ones already retrieved by EFCC and all the likes, even though we know that many have not been approved because the courts have not yet approved for so to be used. You know, I want to hope that, I want to believe, not hope, that these are part of what the intelligent governments, if they are, will be looking at. But above all is the fact that non-oil exports is a rising trend, okay? Because previously it was almost inexistent. The last 2 years we've seen gradual rise. You know, between 2015 and 2016 was about 15%. Now it's rising even more. So I think that the focus is very clear there, and I think that we will be able to do so much more from that.
All right, we'll rest it at this. I just got a message right now. Well, you didn't state your name, but you just asked. You were asking what Fashola has done with the budget for the 2017 for National Second Niger Bridge. Well, that's our show for today. Once again, the President presented 2018 budget of 8.612 trillion naira just yesterday. The country speakers so far will be following the trend and see how all of that unfold. My name is Justin Akademi, but let's say thank you to our guest, to Joshua Akimbajo, an economist, brand marketer, and media strategist, and of course, Abiodun Shogbuto, former Deputy Director of the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Also, a big thanks to Comrade Olushola Ogudiro, Chairman of Trade Union Congress for your state,